Hello guys, in this video I want to talk about how I learned foreign languages from tourists. If you don't know it, I'm an artist at the Zaanse Schans. The Zaanse Schans is a spot in Holland with a lot of windmills. There are a lot of people with different nationalities there every day, so I have a good position to practice my languages. I read the comments and many people didn't believe me when I said that I learned foreign languages from tourists, or they were just surprised about how I started learning those languages. So I'm now going to share my language adventure, how I started and how I could learn all those words from tourists. Okay, 4 years ago I just knew German, French, English and Dutch on an intermediate or fluent level, and I didn't know any of those other languages which I'm speaking now. So I started with learning Mandarin because I thought it was a really cool language. I mean, for me it was a big challenge, but it was more for fun. So I just started with simple phrases like, hello, how are you, what's your name, where are you from? After one day I could remember all those phrases, and I got a lot of nice reactions of the Chinese tourists. It was so fun for me, it was so nice and so cool, that I started with learning more of the Chinese language. And conversations are really predictable. So what I always did with any new language is that I prepared myself on those most frequently used questions. Questions like, have you ever been to China? How did you learn Mandarin? Do you have any Chinese friends, or for how long are you learning it? So those first phrases, I try to recognize them in the Chinese language. So when people ask those questions, I knew which questions they were asking, and I try to prepare myself with the right answers. So I ask tourists to translate those answers from English to Mandarin, and I learned all those answers. And so after 2 days more, I knew all those answers, and I knew how to recognize those questions. So it was just a start. Then I proceeded with learning a lot of new words, frequently used words like always, sometimes, today, tomorrow, eating, drinking, a lot of words. I have my own personal list with the 200 most important words, which I'm always learning when I'm learning a new language. So I'm always using this list. So every day I learned 3 words in Mandarin. So after 80 days, I knew my whole personal list. So I could have a really basic conversation with Chinese tourists. Then again, after those 80 days, I learned a lot of other words, and I also started with learning other languages like Russian, Tagalog, Thai, and I used the same strategy. So again, I learned all those frequently questions, and I also learned all the words from my personal list. So after a while, you learned all those words, and I could have a basic conversation in more languages. So 3 years later, I made my first video. It was going viral. I was really surprised about that because it was more for fun. I didn't expect that so many people would like it and share it. It was more a video for myself, and I'm also happy that I posted the video, because every year when I'm making a new video, I can see my progress again. And after this viral video, I was more serious with learning languages. So I learned Portuguese for 2 months, and I did the same with Spanish. So these languages are now around A2, maybe, I don't think B1, but somewhere between A2 and B1. So what I'm trying now is to improve all those languages to a higher level. But I'm always starting a new language with the same strategy as how I learned it before. So I'm asking tourists to translate it for me and to pronounce it. What I'm also doing now is not that I'm asking to translate it for me, but I'm also asking them to, if I could record their voice. So 4 years ago I didn't have a smartphone. I have it since 2 years or something, so now I have this extra tool to record the pronunciation of someone, of how someone is pronouncing a word. I'm always asking it before, and then I can use the audio file to listen again and again and again, and I can compare my pronunciation with the pronunciation of the native speaker. So that's actually how I learned it, and I hope that people can imagine the whole process of learning a language if you're working with tourists. So I'm really curious about other stories of people, how they started with learning a new language. I think the beginning is always the hardest part. So please feel free to share your story below here in the comments, and I will read it. And other language learners can read it as well. And maybe later I can also make a video about how other language learners are learning languages, just to compare my strategy with their strategy. I think this may be interesting as well. Alright, cheers!